We've all gotten used to AI that can talk. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer. But what about an AI that actually does things? Well, get this. The next big leap for artificial intelligence is here. And it doesn't just answer your questions, it gets your tasks done. So today we're meeting the AI agent, our brand new digital detective.
So, let's just start with this big question right here. What if AI could be more than just a super smart encyclopedia? What if you could give it a request and it could actually understand your goal, break it down into steps, and then use digital tools to get it done for you? That's the huge leap we're talking about with AI agents, and honestly, it's a total game changer.
All right, so here's the game plan for our investigation. First, we're going to meet our digital detective and really figure out what makes it tick. Then, we'll see how it comes up with a master plan. After that, we'll dive into its memory, its infinite case file, and we'll crack open its box of high-tech tools. And finally, we'll put it all together and watch it solve a case right here.
Okay, first up, let's meet our digital detective. The main idea to wrap your head around is this shift, from just passively finding information to actively solving problems. Think of it this way. A normal AI is like a brilliant librarian who can find any book you ask for, instantly. An AI agent? That's the detective who doesn't just find the book, it reads it, follows the clues inside, and actually goes out and solves the crime.
So, what's the official definition here? Well, an AI agent is a system that can perceive its environment, which just means it understands the situation and the data it has, and then, and this is the key phrase, it takes autonomous actions to hit a specific goal. The words to remember there are autonomous actions. This is AI with hands.
Okay, but just acting on its own isn't enough, right? It can't just be random chaos. A smart agent needs a strategy, a plan. And that brings us to our next section, cracking the master plan. This is where you really start to see the intelligence shine through.
I mean, just think about any great detective story you've ever read or watched. They get a really complex case, and what's the first thing they do? They break it down. Okay, first I'm going to interview the witnesses. Then I'll check the alibis. After that, I'll search the scene for clues. An AI agent does the exact same thing, just with a digital task.
And to pull this off, it all comes down to these 4 core capabilities you see right here. It all starts with a clear goal and a smart plan. But to actually make that plan happen, our detective needs 2 more things: a perfect memory and a really powerful set of tools. So, let's kick things off with its memory.
All right, so our detective has a plan. Great, but a plan is pretty useless if you don't have any facts, right? That brings us to its memory, or as we're calling it, the detective's infinite case file.
And it's a lot like how we think. An agent uses 2 kinds of memory. It's got its short-term memory, which is kind of like a little sticky note for what's happening right now in the current case. And then it has its long-term memory, which is like having access to a giant library with every case file and public record ever.
Now, this ability to tap into that huge library is powered by a really cool concept called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is basically the agent's research superpower. It's the ability to pause what it's doing, go look up new, up-to-date info, either from its own files or out on the live internet, and then bring that knowledge back to the problem it's trying to solve. This is a huge deal for solving problems in the real world.
Okay, so our agent's got a plan. It's got a memory. Now it actually has to do something, right? This is where we open up the agent's box of tools. And it's all about this incredible cycle of thinking, acting, and then learning from what happens.
And here's the thing that makes this so smart. It thinks before it acts. An agent doesn't just start doing things randomly. First, it reasons about what the most logical next step is to get closer to its goal, and only then does it actually take action.
This whole process has a name. It's called a react loop, for reason and act. It's pretty simple when you break it down. First, the agent thinks, okay, what's my next move? That's reason. Then it picks a tool from its toolkit and does something. That's act. And finally, it looks at what happened, the observation, and uses that new info to start the loop all over again. Think, act, observe.
And what kind of tools are we talking about here? Well, pretty much any digital program you can give it access to. It could be a web browser to do research, a code interpreter to run some complex math, or even APIs, which are basically like special keys that let the agent use other apps to do stuff like book a flight or order you a pizza.
All right, this is the moment we've been waiting for. Let's put all these pieces, the plan, the memory, the tools, let's put it all together and watch our digital detective actually solve a case from start to finish.
So here's the case we're giving our detective. It's a 2-part mission. find the best flight to Paris for next Tuesday. And while you're at it, check the weather. Now, this sounds super simple for us, but for an AI, it actually requires a solid plan, a good memory, and the right tools. Let's see how it does.
Okay, check this out. Let's walk through its thought process here. Its first thought is, I need to find flights to Paris first. Makes sense. So its action is to use the flight search tool. And what does it find? The observation, 3 options, and option A is the cheapest. Boom, first loop done. So it starts again. New thought. Okay, now I need the weather. The action? It uses the weather API for Paris. And the observation is 22 degrees and sunny. Perfect. Now it has both pieces of the puzzle. So its final thought is, the task is complete, time to report back. The action is to format the final answer, and the goal is achieved.
And that loop you just saw, that simple think, act, observe cycle, that's the engine driving this whole thing. For a really complex case, our detective might run through this loop hundreds of times, learning a little more and correcting its course with every single clue, until finally the case is solved.
And this really gets to the heart of what this is all about. The ultimate goal here isn't just to build artificial intelligence, it's to build artificial autonomy. We're not just creating a machine that can think, we're creating one that can act on those thoughts to get things done in the world all on its own.
Of course, when you have something this powerful and autonomous, you gotta have some ground rules, right? That's where simple frameworks like MCP come in. It's a common sense way to keep things safe. You define the mission. What's its ultimate job? You define its capabilities. What tools is it allowed to use? And you define its policy. What are the red lines, the hard limits it absolutely cannot cross? This is how we make sure our digital detectives are always working for good.
So, this all leaves us with one massive question, doesn't it? We are really just in Chapter 1 of this story. If today's agents are solving simple cases like booking our travel, what happens when they graduate to solving the big mysteries? What world-changing problems are we going to ask them to solve next? The investigation is just getting started. Thanks for joining us.